right, here we go. What is going on, everybody? As you saw last week in our first interview, we had a true New Yorker, and as you saw the last graphic, New York state of mind. But now we got to mix it up a little. We got to bring someone from down south. We have Carl Hooker here from Austin, Texas, who will be another one of our amazing spotlight speakers. So, Carl, thanks for taking the time and jumping on with us today.
What's up, Matt? What's up, Nice Skate? I am an honorary New Yorker, I've been told by several people, including people at Nice Skate. And I'm just so excited to be back up there. You know, Matt, you and I have been to that event a couple of times. They always do an amazing job putting on a great show. I've told people this, and I go all around the world and I talk to different conventions and things like that. And I think you and I have talked about this before, but the energy and the synergy and just like the familial nature of that group, and there's kind of like the positivity that comes out of that conference is just so great. So yeah, I'm excited about it, man, and thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, I can tell already. And I think one of the things, and yes, and I appreciate the first time I went there, I was sharing with Monica was on your invite, and it was great to be there. And I think I'm getting closer to the honorary New Yorker, but from Massachusetts, I think it's harder for
Ooh,
them to let me in.
it is. I
But
actually have people that like think they're surprised that I'm not from New York when I tell them I'm
yeah.
not. So I was like, you know what? I take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I'm getting there, but it's my third year, and it's one I see as an annual event, but one that I really like because it's all inclusive. Like you go, you put your bag in your room, and everything is there.
You're
The
in.
sessions, the events, it's amazing. And I happen to have a chance to go see the event space in the summer, in the golf
Yeah.
event, and it's going to be at a casino. I know are someone who enjoys
What are you saying?
sometimes
What are you saying, Matt?
your
I tend
competitive
to,
spirit. Are
I
you
do. Thank
excited for the
you.
new event? We'll
Thank
say.
you for saying that. I'll just say this: I'm gonna have to have a curfew on myself, whether that be a budgetary curfew or a time curfew. No, I like to play. I like to play poker, and you know I do that. You know, I play cards and things. But I'm just excited, like you were saying, Matt. I think there's something to be said about taking, and it was kind of like this in Rochester a little bit. You're kind of contained. You're in a space. You could go out and there's a few things nearby, but it was pretty much you're in that space. And in this case, we really are. We're out kind of on an island a little bit out there outside of Ithaca, and it's I would be curious to see. I just think again, it encourages more that informal interaction that you and I always talk about. Is a great part of every conference, and every time I talk to people that go to conferences, they're like, "We love the hallway conversations and the maybe sitting next to somebody at a blackjack table." Wait, you never know.
You never know, and I think that's what was part of it, and it comes from that energy from the top. I was very fortunate to have a chance to have Amy and Mary Beth, the two
Awesome.
chairs of the event on the Smile Factor podcast, to kick this all off, and their energy is infectious, and it just rolls right into it, and I think that breeds to it as well. So one of the things that's always impressed me about the work that you do is the energy you bring to your sessions, and for those who are heading out to NiceGate, I want to make sure that they know when and where to find you and talk a little bit about what they're going to see. So we're going to dive right into this. You're going to, I know you have a book
Yeah.
around AI learning in the classroom. So your first is on Sunday, the 25th at 10:45, AI enhanced learning in the future of education. This sounds like a whole event, but how
Yeah.
are you going to squeeze all of this into a one session?
Oh man, you ask that's a great question. This is a full day. It really is. And
It is.
I try to tell people that like 45 minutes is enough time for me to give you highlights. And honestly, if you go to a session anyway that's 45 minutes long as an attendee, what I'm looking for is one or two ideas that I could walk away with. I'm not going to get a deep dive or a full, a chance to do a full day workshop on something. But if I could highlight a few different ideas, a couple different strategies, and a lot of these, yeah, they will be pulled out of my latest book, Learning Evolution. So there's going to be some strategies for how to use AI in the classroom setting, what it looks like to be transparent with learning, and then of course a handful of tools that are just like ways to spice things up a bit, which I think is always fun. So yeah, I'll be doing that for sure. That's going to be a fun little opening session there on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the skills that you bring to events like this is that they're going to walk away with a big picture idea, but some practical strategies. And I think that's an
Absolutely.
important way to balance. And for those who are listening or are watching and can't attend Nice Gator or who have competing sessions and can't come to Carl's sessions, one of the things I always enjoy is when I see something come into my inbox that you have produced or created part of your newsletters and different things. You see scrolling below, and if you're listening, it's carlhooker.com. Make sure to go on that site. You get to see this amazing dashboard here. You get to see all the great things that you have. So if they can't come to one of your sessions, or 45 minutes is not enough, and they go to carlhooker.com, what are some of the things you have on there?
Yeah, that's a link to that's basically my my beginning point and end point of everything that I create and produce. So there's podcasts that are listed on there, webinars that I've done in the past, videos of examples of me doing some of the talks that I've done around various things, links to the books, links to my blog, and links to all my socials. So essentially, that's kind of the end all be all, the one way train station, if you will, of where everything exists in terms of my creative world. And so if you're looking for something in particular, or bringing, or me coming to you,
Hmm.
ways that I do that too, and so I think, it's interesting. We talk about AI a lot. Obviously, that's a big topic of late, and a lot of people are like worried about AI replacing, us, or replacing teachers,
Right.
or replacing speakers, or replacing. And I'm like, there's still something to be said for being able to engage an audience of learners, whether it be students or kids or
Sure.
adults or whatever. And so I think that trait, as of now, I mean, maybe in 30 or 100 years it might be AI replaceable, but for now I think it still comes down to, how do you engage me, how do you get my mind thinking, and then how do you let me translate that into something that's actionable for my classroom.
Yeah, and I know you do that from seeing some of the work that you've done. You have this, will robots replace my job? And
Yeah.
and one
.com, that's a
that
good one.
and one that you always stress is that the people have to bring this content out. And I think that's always a point that's critical. And I think you continue that kind of work when you go on a panel talking about AI with many other spotlight speakers. Right here is just yourself, and I know Tom Murray will be joining that panel, as well as Ken Shelton and some other
Oh
folks.
yeah.
What's that panel? What's the I know the focus is AI, but what are you hoping that this panel will be able to share with the listeners or attendees?
Well, I'm hoping, and I'm not sure 100% because I'm not the one hosting it, but Alana Winnick is hosting it. But I'm hoping she runs it similarly to a one that she did at ISTE, because panels, let's be honest, you're going to go sit it at a panel and you're like, all right, I'm going to sit back here and maybe check my email and maybe listen to a couple of things that someone says, but there's not like pictures or slides or anything like that. But I like the way she's kind of gamified it. And so what she kind of does is give every speaker a couple, if it's run the same way, we're not quite sure
Mhm.
yet. We're still a few weeks out, but it would basically be each one of us has kind of a centralized point about something we want to make around technology. AI, of course, will be a part of it. And then other people on the panel have little option cards to give 1 minute rebuttal. So it's a little bit of a competition. There's a little bit of
Oh,
scoring of
interesting.
points,
Yeah, I like it.
keeps the audience engaged. And then for me as a panelist, I'm like, ooh, I want to say something about that, but I only have two cards left, and I know a couple topics coming that I may want. So you kind of have to hold back, which keeps it from running too long too, because a lot of times panels will go on one, they'll have maybe two questions, like, oh wait, we ran out of time. So I hope it's something like that. But yeah, I think the content wise. So I think interaction wise, I think it'll be good. It'll be more than just a normal panel, but content wise, yeah, I've definitely focused on future innovation and AI.
Nice. And another one that I know you're part of because I roped you into, and we did it last year, was on our Ignite session, which we're also doing on that Sunday, and it's at 2:30 in the showroom, the big room. Um, Talk about that experience, because now, in a very short time, we've talked about you doing a regular panel session or regular session where participants come in, a, a panel where you're talking, and now at Ignite. Like, what's it like building all these different types of sessions, presentations?
I always start with I put myself in a seat in the center of the audience.
Mm,
And I try to say, okay, if I'm sitting here at a panel, sitting here at a 45-minute workshop or a 5 minute ignite, what am I hoping to get out of this? So I try to start with that perspective, keeping the end learner in mind, and think, okay, how's this going to be engaging? Well, 5 minutes, really all you have time is, it's a time for maybe a really good story. And
mhm.
honestly, if you ever look at comedians, a lot of times their sets, they try to break them into 5 to 7 minute chunks, and then they kind of transition to other sets. So for comedians, it's 5 minutes is a good amount of time. So for me, it's like I have enough time to tell a good story. And this one will be tied obviously into AI, but it's kind of dabbling on the fact that you don't have to be expert in everything like we used to have to be with content. Teachers had to be an expert in science to teach science. Now perhaps you don't need to be an expert in that, but you need to be able to use all these different tools. So the Ignite, just to give a little preview, is going to be kind of tied into music. So the idea
Mm.
of, it used to be you'd have a solo percussionist, someone who plays the bassoon. They had to be expert in that field. Now we all have to kind of be DJs, where we can bring in all these tools and all these different sounds and make something that sounds good for our learners.
Wow.
So you don't have to be just an expert in one field or one area like we had to in the past. And I think that's kind of the transition of what's happening with AI in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're describing yourself, because we've just described three different types of sessions. I
Yeah.
think you're doing a couple more things. Are you doing like a poster session and then a nighttime activity? Like, you're doing all of it,
Yeah.
wearing a lot of
Yeah.
hats.
Stay tuned. We'll see. Yeah, there's definitely something in the works for a nighttime activity of some sort. Of course, those of you that come in the past have seen the trivia nights, which are always a blast. And I always end up being a raucous time. I'll just say that because they're usually late at night, and people get a little squirrely, but they're always fun. I always try to keep them interactive again, a lot of music and stuff involved, and then yeah, the poster slash kind of a poster session talk around that little area that they're going to have some different poster sessions. I'll be doing a lot about creativity and how to use some creative tools, including icebreakers. Again,
Mhm.
AI as integrated with icebreakers, which I know a couple of which you've used even in your own school.
Yeah, and definitely, and I think that's incredibly fun and engaging, and again, practical. It's one of the things I always have found with NiceGate and your work too is it's very practical as well. So I appreciate that. So for those coming, we'll review quickly if you want to attend some of these amazing sessions on Sunday at 10:45, talking about AI enhanced learning. In the future, a panel discussion will be at 10 o'clock with multiple speakers talking through some of that work. But that is on Tuesday. Actually, that is on Tuesday. Then we're going to
Hmm.
jump back to the Sunday night. It's at 2:30, our 8-person Ignite session, and always a blast. And just we hit play and we go, and it's just a lot of fun. So I do have two more things I want to ask you now as a spotlight speaker, and as you shared, you do this across the globe. We have a lot of first year speakers. And I know in my maturation of things, I had all sorts of words on the screen, or I talked too much, or I've learned a lot from you of actually adding in time for the participants to talk and taking a lot away from that. Even as recent as 2 months ago, I continue to learn from people who I look up to and do this really well. So for first timers, what are some strategies you would say to make sure to do or to avoid?
Yeah, if you're a first time presenter, I want to again put yourself in the seat of the audience. I always say start there, and then think about how you want to craft the story. So if you have 45 minutes, you have enough time to basically kind of outline kind of some early thoughts and ideas. You want to get them to know you pretty quickly, but don't spend a lot of time in the about me section. I've seen some people spend 10, 15 minutes just talking about, and here I am doing this work and here I am doing that. They'll get that. It'll become part of your story as you introduce things like, hey, one time I was working with this classroom of elementary students, and here's an example and activity I use. So again, they get to know you through those stories and experiences. Don't just spend. I have one slide basically at the beginning that says, "Here's my points. This is how many years I've done this," and there's a little bit of background on me, so you know who I am. But now let's
Okay.
move into the actual fun. And again, as you said, having that time and that interaction, the average adult can go about 18 to 20 minutes before they need some sort of transitional break. So a transition could be a 1 minute quick little thinking activity, a reflection, a turn and talk, think, pair, share, stand up, say something, do something. And so I always try to have at least one of those built into a 45-minute session, maybe even two, one at about the 15-minute, one about the 30-minute mark. Because again, what it does is it activates the mind and gets them rolling. So I would just say to plan it that way, plan it in kind of smaller chunks, and don't feel like you say, Matt, don't feel like you have to talk the entire time. Give them time to think, talk, share, connect, and play. If they have time to actually, if you show them a couple of things, say, hey, take 5 minutes and go and just experiment, play with it, put on a little bit of light music, maybe have a clock on the screen as a visual, and then just let them go. And you kind of wander and ask questions and stuff. I think those are always great sessions too. And don't feel guilty about the fact that you're not talking. I think we want teachers to be facilitators, so we should be the same.
Yeah, I've always found that, and I've caught myself and transitioned out where because I try to do a lot of work on student voice or engagement, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I just talked for the first 10 minutes. Like, why am I doing this? And then I find myself saying, well, don't plan it like me, and I'm like, that's even worse.
Yeah,
So,
don't do what I'm about to do to you for the next 60 minutes, but sit and listen. Yeah.
and I think that's just another thing to take in as someone if you are aspiring to do more work like this at the state or national level, talk to some speakers like Carl. I know he's always answered, besides being great friends, he's always helped me professionally and sharing tips. So feel free, as we said at the beginning, we're all there. So
Yeah.
talk to
Yeah,
people.
and I would add one other part, and that is be flexible and adaptable, just like we always ask our teachers to be. I mean, in our students. So if you overplan, have more than you need for content, but be ready to pull and also gauge the audience. Matt and I can share an example of a great session that we did that we've kind of kicking off at. We're going to do at FETC as well. I don't think we're doing it at NiceGate, but the EdTech Street Fighter, where it was kind of conceived at it was at USET, I think,
Yeah, in
originally.
Utah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was this great idea. We're gonna have this battle, and the crowd will be into it, and they do some voting. Like that's great. And we halfway through the session, while we were kind of getting into it, we looked at each other and we said, you know what, we're missing. We're missing an audience component. We didn't even say it. We kind of looked at each other
No,
like, should we
we're
ask
like
the
we
audience?
could
Let's
feel it,
ask.
right? We're like, oh
Yeah,
man, it's the Matt and Carl show. That's not what this is about.
we stopped, and we at that point we changed. And it ended up being highly more engaging for our audience. And we still were able to get most of our main points across, which we wanted. But I think that was a great pivot. And then we tried it again at Matt's event in Lubbock. always a great event at Confluence. And with those adjustments, we got to see like, okay, now again, first time through, you make some adjustments. Like it's just like when you're teaching, right? The third
Right.
time through is when the class gets the best instruction. So those kind of things, be adaptable. I think that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. And one last thing, what are you looking to take away from NiceGate? I know you've shared that it's a great event for you, shared about the collaborative feel, but you as a learner also take a lot of what you see. How does that feel for you? Like, what do you go in, or do you have a strategy, or you just kind of listen?
Yeah, I think for me, if I had to prioritize it, I would say number one for me is just getting reconnected with some people that I know, but also learning about other educators in the space and their story. And also, I mean, like you, I host podcasts. Like you, I'm running and hosting a lot of events. One, Tech and Learning, we do a bunch of those throughout the year. I'm always looking for people that have great stories to share. And how do I, as a person who now has somewhat of a platform, how do I help amplify their story more? So for me, that's kind of my end goal right at the beginning. And then through that, I learn a lot. I learn a lot about them. I learn a lot about what's happening in the district. I learn about what's happening across the country. So that's part of it. The other part I do, if I have time, I try to sneak into a few sessions. I say sneak. I mean, I go into sessions, and I'll be honest. I mean, there's times when I'll be at a session like this session's not hitting for me. And so I'll kind of quietly get up and walk out. It's hard. I'm a big person. So for me to get out, everyone sees, oh, watch out. Here comes that big guy from Texas. But I think that's important to do too. And don't feel guilty about it. I mean, I see people walk out of mine and I'm like, hey, if this isn't what you're looking for, vote with your feet, go out. You only have a limited amount of time, and this is an attention economy. And so for me, the ultimate reward or praise is when you sit through it and say, hey, I liked every minute of it because that was your attention you gave to me. And I appreciate that. So I say with sessions, it's the same way. Go in. I love the ignites because they're quick. So I'll definitely be through all of those. And then I'll just kind of look at other ones that I feel like are niche or things that I'm trying to learn more about, even with AI and other things. And so I'll kind of start there. But yeah, for me, it still comes down to the connections and just getting to meet great people.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking some time for us. I know that I am your Uber from Albany to the session, so I look forward to
I'll get
seeing.
to pitch the ignite. I'll get to do the rehearsal of the ignite on the car on the way
Or I
there. Yeah,
remind you to share it with me, one of the two. I don't know.
probably also true. Yeah.
And for all of you who are watching, check down the below carlhooker.com. See all those great resources. If you're listening, you heard what I said, carlhooker.com. Go to the site, see all the great resources. If you're at NiceGate, make sure to stop in, say hi, check out our sessions, and we will see you throughout the full event. So, Carl, I get to see you in a couple weeks.
That's right. Be ready for the jackpot. It's coming. I'm going to pull that lever. Here we go. I'm going to win learning. That's the thing I'm going to
All
win.
right, we're going to win learning that. Well, we will go out on that. I hope all of you listening and watching continue to win learning. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you at Turning Stone Casino. Carl, we'll see you soon.
See you soon, buddy.
All right, see you.